All right. The United Auto Workers, they could be going on strike September 15th. I stand with the workers. Ford releases this commercial during the NFL game tonight. So let's go ahead and check it out.
There are people who say things aren't made here anymore. Those people should come to Michigan, or Kentucky, or Missouri, where you'll find Ford workers not just assembling vehicles, but building the future of automotive manufacturing. It's why
All right, let's stop right there. What they just said is true. There are Ford factories in those states, but he forgot to mention there are 4 plants in Mexico. Why in Mexico, you might ask? Because guess how much money they spend on an employee in Mexico per day? Are you ready for this? $6.58 a day. Not an hour, a day. That is the labor cost in Mexico. That is why they have 4 plants in Mexico. If they loved America as they claim, there would not be any factories in Mexico. They would be in America. You can't make this stuff up. Let's continue.
Ford employs the most hourly auto workers in this country. Can't speak for the other guys.
Well, that's true. Ford is probably the biggest American car company. Last year, 158 billion profit. After that, 158 billion profit. You know what they did to their employees? Did they give them raises? No. They pocketed. So out of that 158 billion, they took around 11, 12 billion and spent it on labor cost. That's just a small fraction. So imagine if I gave you $158 billion, and imagine if we subtract, let's say, 12 billion, you're looking pretty good. Now, you might say it would be more than fair and reasonable for Ford to double their employees' pay, being that they're so profitable. But do they do that? No. And they won't do that because they're greedy, like any other company. All of these companies are so greedy. I stand with the workers. They should strike. And this has to stop. This insatiable greed in this country from people, it has to come to an end. Let's continue.
We're all in on America.
Now that's a lie from hell. That's a lie from hell. We're all in America, so we have 4 plants in Mexico where we pay an employee $6.58 a day. We're all in on America. Those are 4 plants that could be in America providing jobs, but they're not. They're in Mexico. Like I said, could they be sued for making this kind of commercial where they're just lying boldly? I wonder, could they? Because they're lying. They are not all in on America. They do not do what they could do for their employees. As a matter of fact, based on everything I've already shared with you, you might say they hate America. You might say they do the bare minimum for their employees, which they do. So let's just continue. I think that's pretty much the end of it. Yeah. All right. So proud to be built in Mexico, apparently, right? So United Auto Workers, they're going to most likely strike because the greedy car companies, they're not going to want to do anything. And I stand with the employees. Not everything they want should they get, but there are some core things that they did have that was taken away from them, and they were told that it would be given back to them when times were better, but that didn't happen. So those things should be restored, and there's some other good things that should happen. So I stand with them on that. Hope they win. Of course, Ford, GM, the other companies, they could have, a little bit of salt in the wounds and want to close everything down and just open up everything in Mexico. That could happen. If it does, it's time for the government to step in and call that an act of treason. In my opinion, any American company that opens up a plant outside this country commits an act of treason and should be dealt with accordingly. And if you know the punishment for treason, then you know how I feel strongly about this. America used to be a country of farming, production, manufacturing, and inventing things. Due to many reasons, those things are no longer true. But they could be true again, but not with the way we're headed. So, before I end this video, let me say something about electric cars. They are not the future. Who's behind this? A fool. Many fools. Electric cars will hurt the car industry. It hurts the workers. The majority of workers work on gas vehicles. The majority of the car industry works on gas vehicles. That is how it should be. Electric cars. First of all, do you know what it takes to make a battery for an electric car? First of all, it takes slave labor. Little children in Africa that are slaves, beaten, hungry, are forced to work in filth to gather the necessary materials to make the batteries. So, number one, that's slave labor, hardcore slave labor. All right, there's no fan blowing on them. At least in a sweatshop, you might have a fan in the sweatshop at least. At least you'll be sitting down in a chair. Not when it's time to get the stuff for the battery. And no particular order. Number two, when something happens to your electric car, you're going to go to AutoZone. You're going to go to O'Reilly's. You're going to go to your local mechanic. No, you're going to have to ship that car away. And you're going to be without it for a very long time, depending on how, what the problem is. And then let's say eventually your battery is going to go bad. How much is that going to cost you to replace it? More than the car itself. How nice is that? And then where are you going to put the battery at when it's gone kaput? Where are you going to put it? You can't recycle that. So, let's think about this. All right, another little point for you. Stealing. A lot of stealing going on. There's never been more stealing in the history of this country than there is right now. And what do you think the thieves are going to do? California will be a perfect example. When California goes all electrical, which is the most stupidest thing you ever heard in your life, well, one of them, thieves are going to go to these locations where there's charge stations. They're going to wait for you to pull in. You need to charge. And they're going to rob you. And that will be your life. You don't think that's going to happen? There's already plans. Believe me. So California, get ready for it. You're going to go to a charge station. You're going to be robbed. The news will talk about it, but nothing will happen. It's going to be too easy. So electric cars, they're not the future. And electric cars have been around for a very, very long time. Believe it or not, they're just not the answer. Not in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So that's where we're at with it. We need a change. We need a forceful change. This cannot continue. So I stand with the United Auto Workers, and I am completely against these companies. All right, let me know in the comments your guys' thoughts.